Hey everyone, this is Lisa from Life in Layouts. It's the last day of the month, so that means it's month in review. I pulled out my simple stories for the record collection, as well as this page map sketch from May of 2021. The sketch does call for 2.5 by 2.5. I actually change it up to 3x4s and 3x3s, mainly because those are the size flip-flops that I had and I needed to make it work with a ton of photos on my layout. I ended up with 18 photos on this layout, as well as 3 areas for journaling, 2 of them being on a 3x3 and 1 of them being on a 3x4. I have been really enjoying the grid style lately, and this is no exception. I love the way that this layout turned out. I'm just trimming down my photos. I did use the Project Life app to put my photos into a 3x4, and then I also use Canva to bring my photos down to a 3x3 just because it makes it a little bit easier. I started to look through the collection. I knew I wasn't going to need a lot of paper for this layout. I have been saving this yellow arrow paper. I love this paper so much, and I knew that I wanted to use it in a large capacity. I end up cutting the paper in half, and I'm going to put 6 inches on both sides of the layout. In the center, I'm going to be using this little square pattern in the 6x8 size because I wanted those squares to be much smaller than they were on the 12x12. As you can see, the sketch calls for 2 pieces of pattern paper on the edge of the layout. I first started out with this navy paper that has the lines on it, but I wasn't liking that. So I ended up pulling out the striped paper as well as my border punch to add to the left-hand side of the layout. I was trying to figure out how much of the square paper I needed, so I knew that I needed to get the striped paper as well as the yellow arrow paper down so that I could see what was left. I just moved the yellow paper over just a little bit so that I wasn't really covering up anything, and then I added the striped paper down. On the right hand side of the layout, I'm going to do something very similar, just like the sketch calls for. I'm going to cut out a strip of this push pin paper. Since I was using such a large piece of a solid paper, the yellow with the white arrows, I knew that I needed to bring in all of the colors because I was going to be bringing in a bunch of different colors with the embellishments. So the 2 papers on the left-hand side, the push pin paper as well as the striped paper, and of course the tiny square paper in the center, really allowed me to bring in a ton of colors. For the center piece, I also knew that I needed to map my photos, and I was not in the mood to be doing math. I was actually on a video call with Nicole while I was doing this, and I just wanted to put the photos on the paper. And that meant that I ended up using 4 sheets of white cardstock, which is just a shame for me. But sometimes you just go with the easier option because you just don't want your brain to work that hard. This is where I decided to go ahead and pull out my flip-flops. When I went to add down the Life in Layout Lounge photo, I knew that I had 3 photos that had to deal with my channel, and I felt like that was just a perfect way to have a flip-flop. So the Life in Layout Lounge is on top, and then underneath that is a photo of me editing a video while I'm in the car waiting for Eli to finish up his D&D. And then the photo that is flat to the layout is me getting to 3,000 subscribers. So I am just making a grid with the photos and then trimming out the white paper. As I'm doing that, let me just talk a little bit about some of the photos. Sometimes these photos are just these random photos that just doesn't make any sense. Eli being cute in that photo on the top right, he is laying on the couch with one of our regular dogs, Robbie, and he just looks super cute. He's watching TV. Robbie's got his head up on the arm of the couch. Nothing fancy about it, just a super cute photo. Right next to it, I was actually sitting at the mall editing a video. Eli wanted to go to the mall with his friend, so I hung out in one of the leather chairs that is like a massage chair, editing a video. And you can't go to the mall without going to the Great American Cookie Store and getting a Domino cookie, which is what that picture is. Right below it is his orientation photo for 8th grade. And then right below that, I'm going to add another frog photo. I think I added one last month as well. Last month, I think the frog photo was the tadpoles. It actually might have been the month before, but they obviously grow up. And now we have big toads everywhere. And this one just happened to be on top of my security camera by my front door. And then right next to that photo is me and Eli picking up one last summer treat from Dairy Queen before school started. And I put this grid down, and when I went to cut it out, for some reason the photos didn't line up. I love the look of a grid, but man, I don't like putting them down. And like I said, I was video chatting with Nicole, and she was like, you should probably look into some 8.5 by 11 photo paper, because it really does make it so much easier to do it on the computer and then just print it out. So maybe I'll have to invest in that as well. I did decide to go ahead and trim down the inside parts of the photo mat, just so there was a very tiny border between the photos and the inside of the layout. At this point, I pulled out that square paper again, and I'm going to trim it down. I really tried to line it up as best as possible so that when it was laid down on the layout, the squares would line up. I knew I didn't have enough to cover that entire space, so I was going to have to cut 4 pieces, and I really wasn't worrying about the size of it. I was more worried about how many squares were on the paper. I knew that some of it would be covered up by my photo mat, so it really didn't matter how wide it was as long as it was wider than the photo mat. So I added it to the top and bottom on the left-hand side, and then made sure that the photo mat worked, and then trimmed off the extra pieces. I'm going to do the exact same thing to the right-hand side of the layout. And as I'm getting that down, let me just talk a little bit more about a couple more photos. Over on the left-hand side, we've got my channel stats that I've been including every single month. And I'm really enjoying having those in my layouts because I like to see the progression of it. I work really hard to grow my channel and to make sure that my statistics are always growing. Sometimes it's a lot more than others, and that's okay. I understand that it's not going to be amazing growth every single month, but I like to see exactly what it is every month. Right next to it is Eli at the bookstore. He's really into manga, and so he was checking out some manga books. Right below the stats is my friend Christina and I. It was actually a photo collage that I had created to post on Facebook. We were at Keel Farms, which is a local winery, and we were doing Disney trivia. And then right below that photo is a steam cleaner. We have carpets. I hate the carpets. I am in a rental, so I don't really have an option with it. So about once a year, I rent a steam cleaner and do a really good job of steam cleaning the carpets, which that reminds me, it's about that time to steam clean the carpets again. I did go off camera and go ahead and print out my journaling on the 3x3 and 3x4 pieces of paper so that I could add it to my flip flaps. And I'm so glad that I did because I had actually missed a photo. There's a photo of Eli looking at his baby book, my scrapbook album that I've created for him. And I can't believe I missed that the first time around when I was looking through the photos. So I definitely printed that one out and added it to the layout as well. And then I have this photo of chapstick, which I know that that's a weird thing to take a photo of, but it was actually the same day that I was waiting for Eli to get done with D&D, and I went to put my chapstick on because I leave it in the car, and I was out. This is my absolute favorite chapstick. It is cotton candy flavored. It is very difficult to find. You can usually only find it at Walgreens, and there was a Walgreens that was very close to his D&D place, so I was like, let me go up there and see if they have it. They had 4, and I bought all 4 of them, and so that's what that picture is. Right above that is Eli's first day of school. You can see how it's not such a great photo and why I hire somebody to do his first day of school photos as well as his end of school photos. He doesn't smile for me like he does for Nikki. She's just an amazing photographer and just does a great job with getting him to smile. I went ahead and added the push pin paper to one of the squares as well. I just wanted to break up all of the photos. The sketch does call for actually a couple of pieces of paper that are pattern paper as opposed to pictures, so I wanted to have a nod to that as well. Over on the right-hand side, I added the month sticker that I'm using on all of the layouts, as well as that cluster that's already created and the number 8. I added the August tab over on the left-hand side, but that actually doesn't stay there. And then I went ahead and added the typewriter with the florals to that push pin paper. And then this is where I decided that I was going to do a tone-on-tone look over on the left-hand side of the layout. So I did end up moving that August tab to the right, and I started to look through my embellishments to see how much yellow embellishments I had. If you guys remember, a couple of months ago, I did a tone-on-tone look where I did a blocking of multiple different colors. And about halfway through this, I realized I don't have a lot of yellow embellishments left. So I did pull out what I had, which was a tag that says, "Don't forget to enjoy the moment." I also cut down this square that has like the photo corners on it because there was some florals on the other side and I knew that I could use that on a different layout. I also pulled in a circle that says "Keep looking up," as well as a camera and another typewriter, and then another little tab that kind of looks like a Post-it note that says "Today is the day." I then pulled in a tag that says, "Well, hello there," as well as the word "today," and a yellow label that has some stitching on it. Really, I was just looking through anything that I could to find yellow pieces. I was really missing just some smaller pieces, so I decided to pull out my embellishment books. I do have a tutorial on my embellishment books. I keep them separated in 1-inch binders. So this is my yellow binder. Some of my binders are connected, like my red and orange binders are together because I don't have a lot of embellishments in those colors. But this is perfect for when you're doing tone-on-tone layouts. I was able to pull out some smaller yellow pieces to include hearts and florals, gears, arrows, stars, just anything that was small enough, as well as obviously in the yellow color. I even pulled out this viewfinder and added it to the bottom left. I don't think that it's actually supposed to be yellow, but it's so old that it's discolored, and I was just going with it. I decided to add some stitching to the layout as well. Over on the right-hand side, I'm gonna just add a straight row of stitching. And then I also thought about adding a row of stitching over to this stripe paper. You can see that I went ahead and poked my holes. I got about halfway down and I realized I was no longer poking in the paper. I had gone off the edge of the paper so bad that there was no fixing it. So I did decide to go ahead and re-cut out this striped paper. And I forgoed putting the stitching on the left-hand side of the layout because I was worried that I wasn't going to get the holes in the right place and it just wasn't going to work. So that's the great thing about having extra paper. You just cover up your mistakes, right? No mistakes in scrapbooking, just ways to find a different embellishment. I went ahead and pulled out the yellow thread that I have been using for this entire collection and added that to the right hand side of the layout. Over on the right, I'm not going to add a lot to this because I feel like the left hand side does provide a lot of detail. So I do go off camera and do my stitching, and I slowed the video down here so that you can see it, and you can see that I missed a hole. I don't know how I did that. I was watching TV, probably not paying attention, but that meant that I had to rethread my needle and put one little tiny stitch in this layout. And because I wasn't going to be putting a lot on the right hand side, it wasn't like I could just add an embellishment to it. I decided to go ahead and add another typewriter. At this point, I have 3 typewriters on this layout, so I was really leaning into that theme for this month. And since the typewriter had that really pretty floral on it, I decided to go ahead and add another floral, and I feel like that ties the typewriter to the end of the word August. I also pulled out the adhesive brad, and it has the same floral on it, and I added it right to the end of the word August. Then I started to look through the collection for all of the number 8s. The amount of time that the number or the month is used in this collection is just crazy. I put 7 stickers on this layout that either have the word August or the number 8. And I think that that has been average for every single month. I don't know what they were thinking in regards to having that many. Probably the fact that most people aren't going to buy everything. So they were thinking that maybe they should get it on all the different pieces, because there is a sticker sheet, there is the chipboard, there's pieces in the sticker book, and then there's also pieces in the embellishment packs. I pulled out the enamel dots. I added a bunch of yellow ones over on the left-hand side. I put some in the middle of the florals on the right-hand side. And then I do add a couple more enamel dots to that pre-made cluster right underneath the number 8. I then pulled out the stamp and die that I have been using on every single layout with this month in review this year, and I am doing the same technique of stamping the date and then adding those to the circles. I did cut out a lot of it this month since I have been doing it every month, but I did want to leave this in where I'm just adding the circles to the photos themselves so that you can see that part of the technique. And then the numbers correspond with the journaling that's in those 3x3 and 3x4 flip flaps. I think the only photos left that I haven't talked about is just Eli doing some push-ups in my scrapbook room. He actually came in the scrapbook room and was like, hey, look how many push-ups I can do. And so I turned around and snapped a picture of him. And then there is another photo of him and Robbie on the couch, because that is definitely his favorite dog. And then there's also another photo of Eli and Benji, which is also one of our regulars, and they are stretched out on his bed watching TV. Nicole is playing along with me. I totally forgot to mention her last month, but her video will be linked below. So make sure you go check out her take on August month in review using this same collection. All right, that is it for this video. Here is my final layout as well as some close-ups. I can't believe it's been 1 year since I've created the Facebook group Life in Layout Lounge. If you want some behind the scenes photos from my journey into this scrapbooking and YouTube content creating, make sure you go check out the Facebook group. It is linked below. If you enjoyed this video, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already and you want to see more double page layout inspiration, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks everyone for watching, and I hope that you have a scrappy day.